In episode 74 of Beyond Distribution with GTDC, host Frank Vitagliano sits down with Anthony Frot, Research Director at Context, to discuss the growing importance of market intelligence in the technology channel. Anthony shares about the importance of collecting and analyzing channel data to help distributors, vendors, and partners better understand market trends, opportunities, and challenges. He also discusses Context's long-standing partnership with the GTDC and the increasing value of localized insight as the organization expands its coverage across Asia Pacific and other global markets. The conversation explores forecasting accuracy, key market signals for the second half of 2026, and why country-level intelligence is essential for understanding broader regional and global trends. If you are interested in the data and insights shaping the future of technology distribution, this episode is worth a listen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of Beyond Distribution. I am delighted today to have with me Anthony Frot, the Research Director from Context. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you, Frank, for having me. Looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, really happy to have you. And as I'm sure many people know, Context has been a long-time partner of GTDC, providing really good market intelligence and analysis into the for the European market, and recently also for Asia Pacific. So we're really happy to have you and certainly be partners with Context. Anthony, before we get started, because I know there's a lot to talk about, a lot of really interesting stuff, let's just talk about you and Context for a minute or two. So
Sure.
Talk a little bit about your background and how you kind of got into the IT space.
Ooh, very interesting. Frank, so for me, I started in the IT industry space. That was actually my first job with Context 20 years ago. When we started with data is the new oil. It was in every presentation. And actually, my first job as Context was I was actually on the oil rig, getting my hands dirty, looking at the data, cleaning it, processing it, to then deliver it to our clients. So that was that was 20 years ago. And then I moved more into a product management role, helping with this refined data, selling it to our client to help them make sense of it. And then my career took me to Asia for almost 10 years or more than 10 years. And recently, I moved back to the UK with Context. But this time, instead of looking what happened last week, last month, last quarter, we are focusing more on, and I'm focusing more on understanding what will happen in the next 4 quarters. So really developing our forecast capabilities to continue to support the IT distribution channel, our distributor, our partner, and our clients. So really all my life, by luck, I've been in the IT industry, and it's been changing tremendously from data to either new oil to today, everything is AI. So great industry to be in.
Yeah, it really is. And you're right. That role that you've had, you've seen an amazing amount of change, and you can see that through the data, obviously. Anthony, talk a little bit about Context and what Context does and the services and offerings you guys provide to your clients.
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, we are working hand in hand with the GTDC. So basically, what does that mean? Every day, every week, we actually receive a point of sale from distributor, from reseller, from retailer. And what we do at Context, we take this data, clean it, process it, and then aggregate everything and send it back to our partner, to a client, in terms of report, in terms of data feed, to help them make sense of what happened in the previous week. So really tracking both the distribution sales, but also we look outside of distribution or sell out, tracking sales, but also tracking pricing. And as you said, we started in Europe, as my background say, 40 plus years ago. And since then, we are expanding our coverage in the Middle East, or as you mentioned, once again, in partnership with the GTDC, very soon in Asia Pacific. So really taking Context from just a European partner with the GTDC to a more global organization, really helping everyone within the IT industry to make sense of the IT industry. How much did I sell last week? What will happen next quarter? So really tracking sales, tracking price. So yeah, all over the IT and especially in the distribution side.
Yeah, I could personally attest to, not just from my GTDC days, but prior to GTDC, when I was on the vendor side, I found the data incredibly useful, in terms of understanding trends and understanding directions, in where product was going, where pricing was going. To be honest with you, I don't know how you run the business without it. Um,
Definitely. And I think that's what also helping the channel, helping the relationship between the vendor and the distributor, having the same data set. So when you do your QBR, you have this version of the truth, it's a context number. Everyone is looking at the same data. Nothing is hidden, and you can have much better conversation. You have the same data to really understand each other and really have a proper conversation based on our data. So it's great to be there in the channel.
Yeah, so one of the really cool offerings that you guys came out with not that long ago, in addition to the tracker, which has been consistent for years, which is important to your point, having a level of consistency so that both the vendors and the distributors and everybody else sees the same data. But the forecast report, that forecast report that you guys started not too long ago is incredible because not only does it provide you the backdrop as to what did happen and why it happened, but you then move to what you think is going to happen and why you think it's going to happen. And then the next report, you come back and say, well, here's what happened, and here's what we got right, and here's what we didn't get right, and here's why. And I think that's incredibly useful. And it's also an indicator, frankly, of how complicated and complex the world that we live in is from a data standpoint, huh?
Definitely. It's very the forecast exercise is a very difficult exercise, as we know, especially in this fast-moving environment, from what's happening in terms of tariffs that when I started the forecast the forecast capabilities, forecast product, down to the impact of AI. And so it's really fast-moving. And I think it's important, as you mentioned, that when we do our forecast and at context, we're very transparent to help you understand, okay, why did we get wrong and why, and try to explain our logic and what happened. And I think it's important to not just throw some number out there for you to use or for everybody to use, but to understand, okay, maybe we got that wrong and we're going to be better. We need to take that more in consideration, but to be transparent about what's happening in the market and why we were wrong or why we were right as well. Most often we are getting better at delivering more accurate forecasts, and I think that's something we should also appreciate. The lot of effort that we do in the background from our analysts, our country manager, working together, talking to so many people in the industry to make sure that when we present something on a quarterly basis, it represents what we're hearing from the channel, from the distributor, from the manufacturer, from the vendors, and to have one aligned vision. It's not only us deciding a number, it's really an exercise of us questioning the channel and getting insight from them. Day to day, we talk to distributor, we talk to vendors, and that reflects into our report.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's pretty amazing, and we'll jump into some of the numbers and some of the results here in a minute, but one of the things that's really amazing to me about the value that you guys provide is you've got resources just about in every country in Europe. Probably not just about, probably in every country in Europe. You have resources,
Yeah.
And they're significant resources. And one of my favorite meetings of the year is when the context people and the GTDC people kind of get together a couple of times a year, and all your folks from all around the world get on a call, and we talk about country by country what's going on. And that is a really useful exercise because the knowledge that your folks have at a country level, I think, makes a big difference. Because we're not talking pan-European, we're talking Italy, Spain, Germany, etc. Very important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's great to have this level of knowledge in country level, from their experience. They've been there for a long time. They know everyone knows them. They're always invited to present at events, to give awards. and to go to conferences and everyone know them. And I love going on a client call and say, oh yeah, I was with your country manager in Italy. I was talking to Aman in Germany. And you can see how embedded they are within the distribution environment. And it's great to have this knowledge and to use this knowledge. It's great to have them and to share back with us what they're seeing on the ground to help us with our forecast or with everything. Europe and the rest of the world, but especially Europe, it's very different culture from different country. The role of distribution is also different depending on the country. So to have this knowledge at local level is key to support the GTDC, to support the distributor, but also to support our client community.
Yeah, for sure. So Anthony, let's talk a little bit, keep it at a macro level for a minute, and let's talk about just sort of the macro environment, because the macro environment that we're all operating in, but certainly within Europe, is really challenging, frankly, with all that's going on. Talk a little bit about how you see that in terms of what's happening and potentially, some of the impacts because of that.
But the impact that we're seeing not only in Europe but across the world is obviously like the issue with AI memory, where the memory are being prioritized to AI data center, and we see the impact definitely on the price of components. Okay, that will impact down the line the PC or the server market. So what we've been seeing is this huge, I don't want to use this word, but I'm going to use it, panic buy in Q1, where we see reseller trying to go and talk to distributor to get as much stock at this low price, anticipating the price increase that will come down the line. And now in Q2, where we may be in a little difficult position in terms of inventory, where this reseller have great inventory at lower price, and where the distributor may have some stock at higher price, and how that's going to pan out in the second half of the year. That could be a very interesting forecast that we are working on at the moment, where we see will the price will have to drop to drive demand, or we will see this continued price increase on the PC side. Remember, there was also this Windows 11 refresh that started last year, but still continuing in some countries. Some countries are far ahead, but there's still some pocket of country in Europe where the Windows refresh is still happening. So what does that will mean for the price of the machine, etc. And on the other side, of course, on a more infrastructure side, on the server side, we see this huge price increase impacting the server market. When we look at just RAM, component RAM, year on year, more than 140% year over year in terms of price, and the impact that have for server, we see the revenue in the server space like growing at tremendous rate. Where the unit may grow in single digits only, we see the revenue growing at triple digits sometimes. So that's really like what we're facing right now, is these two forces, like this, that impact everyone, not only Europe, but all over the world. But what will be the impact for the second half? That's difficult to forecast, and we're still finalizing this. But we should see this really that unit going down and revenue going up. And that will be an interesting way of how to track the market. Yeah, your revenue may grow, but your unit will go down. And we know some vendors like to track unit shipped, but maybe they need to look at, okay, maybe we should look also what's happening in terms of revenue. And that's already happening in the PC market these days. You see the price going up, you see like revenue going up, but unit going down. So that's interesting shifts that we see in Q2 and for the rest of the year. And for server infrastructure, still growing. The price of components is really driving this market, and we need to see that. But that's in the same time in Europe, what we're seeing as well, and as I mentioned before, all of Europe is quite different, and you see like this EU funding that drive tremendous results, like in Spain, we have this EU fund that will finish like in August, and we see this rush through the channel, through distribution, where corporate and SMR are really purchasing and making use of this fund. And you see this growth in Spain that we've seen last year and continuing again this year, double-digit growth month after month, thanks to this funding. And this funding also, we can find that, for example, in Poland, where there is this huge education framework at the moment, like almost 200,000 notebooks being delivered via the distribution channel, monitors, etc., and workstations. So there is this investment as well in Europe to try to that goes through distribution. That also a great headwinds for the channel in moving forward. So that's
Yeah,
interesting time. Yeah.
well, for sure. And you know, the numbers that we've seen so far this year for distribution are as good as we've seen almost any year I've looked at them. I mean, they're
Yeah.
really very, very
Yeah.
good. And you
Yeah.
know, we're recording this near the close of the second quarter, right? And so obviously we don't know second quarter numbers, but fact of the matter is they're going to be good, all right? And for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned. Um, the tricky part here is as the rest of the year unfolds, where do we see that playing out? And most people tend to be a little bit pessimistic as it relates to that because some of the upfront buying activity is probably going to slow down.
Yeah.
The memory shortages aren't going away and then will become more relevant, and flow through everything. Now, the good news is perhaps some of the conflicts that we see out there might be easing a bit. So that might help with inflation and some of the other things. So it's a tricky, it's tricky to be sitting here thinking about where are we going, huh?
It's a tricky situation to be in my shoes today to
Yeah.
decide what will the distribution market look like in 3 months' time. But it's true, like we just announced, President Trump just announced, like the Iran conflict and the Strait will be reopened. That will ease inflation for sure, and that will ease the market as well, and bring maybe more optimism in the industry. But at the same time, these shortages will still be there. And for us, it was always a year of two halves, where we have this first half of amazing growth, and we see that in Q1 it was 9% growth year over year in Q1. In Q2 we're still seeing a bit of growth, but this growth will be less in the second half of the year. You know, like earlier this quarter, when we presented the Q2 forecast, we are looking probably in Q3 around 3 to 4%, and again a bit lower in Q4, just below 2%. But remember that also a back of great years that we have in 2025. But we see a slowdown in year-on-year growth, but still on the positive side. You know, that's what we need to remember. There is still positive number out there, just less than when we've seen in the first quarter, and it's normal. You see the investment, you see all this panic buying that happened in Q1, and we finish at almost 10% year over year. So that's a great number for all involved in this business, and I think that will continue. You see server, there is still growth in unit as well. So there is definitely still pocket of opportunities. There is still some budgets that need to be spent on something, and we will still see some growth in the second half for sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things, Anthony, that I find most interesting when we have the discussion regarding Europe, but also challenging, particularly for somebody who's not there every day and not living it, is, and you kind of mentioned this, there's a couple of countries that you mentioned, Poland and Spain, that have been doing extraordinarily well, partly because of incentives and initiatives within the country.
Yeah.
But Germany is obviously a major factor, largest economy, et cetera. Tell me what's going on in Germany and what are you seeing there?
Actually, yeah, Germany was a great story. It's been quite not doing so great. It's the biggest economy and the biggest market in Europe for IT product. And it's always, when we look at Germany, it's a key driver of what will happen in the rest of Europe.
Right.
And what we've been seeing is really a shift into Germany. Like in the past last year, there was a lot of uncertainty, like new government, what will happen. And then the change also, there is a lot of emphasis on infrastructure change. You know, they change the fiscal rule to be able to invest more in infrastructure and in defense. That also impacts the IT channel. And we've seen Germany growing so much, even like in May, because I've got my number as well, and I can share that with you. Still like 6% growth year over year. So Germany is really turned the corner, and hopefully will continue throughout the year to help the IT European market going in the right direction. On the other side, it's another story for the UK. Like if we look also in May, that's like a negative result. I know that's going to be a difficult year-on-year compare, but it's two different economy, and you see everyone is different. But it's great to see Germany really pushing forward, using the channel, the distribution channel to sell product. It's great route to market in Germany, the distribution channel. And we see this positive reaction, and maybe more business confidence as well, consumer confidence a bit less, but more on the business side. And we see that happening in our data as much as right now. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, Anthony, the process that you use. So we're now here at the end of the second quarter, and at some point you'll definitely have a third quarter forecast if you don't already have one, and then of course rest of the year. What's the process that you use and sort of the timetable that you go through? When will you start to be able to release some of that information?
So I can tell you this. First of all, the release will be 5th of August 2026 for Q3. And so we have 1 month and a half to build this forecast. So the first step for us is really to start understanding what's happening in Q2. So we want to have the full Q2 number ready. So that's going to be beginning of July. And we will have a great understanding of what's happening by country, by category, by channel in the distribution market. So with this analysis, then we'll take it to our peers in the industry market. And the way we do our forecast at Context, we will have our analyst or our country manager working together, putting numbers together. But what we do then is we run session with distributor, with vendor, either on the side, or we organize a more formal one per category that I host. And if you're interested, reach out to me, where we put preliminary numbers that our analysts will have beginning of July, and we'll put it out there for open discussion. And it's always interesting to have different opinions from different countries. You will have a distributor in Germany that gives his opinion, or European vendors on the PC side that will give another perspective. And then, we take this feedback plus the other feedback that we gather to build that into a number and then be able to publish. So it's not only our country manager and analyst working together in silo without talking with the rest of the world. But as you mentioned, our country manager are already out there trying to validate the forecast with our contacts, the analysts likewise. And then we have this session with distributor, with reseller as well, with vendors, all together to look at the number and try to refine it, especially in terms of driver, in terms of tailwinds, to make sure we are all the logic and we are happy with a number. And the way we do our forecast, we have our central forecast, but we also try to build in scenario in terms of what will be a more positive outlook. Okay, let's say Iran, the war is really finished and the strait is really open. So more positive outlook and more negative outlook. And we put through the market, get the feedback, get back together and publish a forecast. So it's really engaging with the channel to make sure what we're going to present reflect what we're hearing on the ground. Okay. Yeah. And this exercise, we do it at European level, and we're now starting to do it at global level. So we have the team in local country engaging in this term of conversation, setting up this live session where we're going to invite people to give their opinion and their feedback. So that's something we're trying to work, is to really, from a European perspective, expand into a more global view of the IT distribution market. And this should be able to share soon a more global PC distribution forecast in the coming weeks.
Yeah, that'll be exciting because look, I think, it's easy to underestimate how complex it is. And it's one of the reasons I wanted you to go through that. For a lot of folks, it's easy to underestimate how complex it is to do this within Europe because you've got all the different countries. Whereas, when we talk about North America, It's the US and Canada. And it's, a reasonably small number of distributors compared to the number in Europe. And it's just a totally different environment. Clearly, as we enter into Asia, it'll be closer to what we see in Europe. And
Yes.
and we're glad that we're partnered with you and IDC together in Asia to do that, because that level of experience will help us as we move forward. But I couldn't agree more. I think the idea of having a global view, which we've never had before, but we're getting real close to being able to do it, is really important. The individual numbers will always matter, by country, by region, by, overall area. But globally, it'd be good to get a view of that. So we're looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely global is something we're really investing in context this year and for the year to come, to make sure we can help our client have a more global understanding of what's happening. Of course, you have access to the US, to Europe, so probably a good 50% of the market, if not more. But to add Asia to it, to add Middle East and Africa, to add South America, to really give you a full picture of what's happening, that's really what we're aiming for. And it's interesting time to try to develop a forecast methodology in this very ever-changing macroeconomic environment. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun.
well, we
It's
sure
fun,
appreciate it. So we're getting close to the end here, Anthony. So one last question, so that we're clear on timing. So you anticipate the end of the second quarter report being released in when?
So the second quarter. So we should have the data ready. I think if I look at my calendar by the week of the 13th of
Yeah.
July.
Okay.
So
And then
from
the third
then
quarter forecast in August, first week in August.
yeah, the first week of the 6th of August will be when we will have our
Yeah.
final results. But during this mid-July period, it's where we will have our live session with everyone that want to be involved. Invite already been sent out. I've seen some replies. So that's where we present our preliminary result and get feedback from the industry.
Yeah.
And 6th of August, we will have the number published through our webinar or marketing effort, and you will be able to see what's happened in Q3, Q4, but also we're going to be forecasting the second half of 2027. Okay, we always try to look at 4 quarters in advance, so that will be Q3, Q4, and first half of 2027.
Well, that's great. So, Anthony, I appreciate your time, and I would encourage anybody who's listening to this podcast to, if you're not currently looking at the context reports, to do that. And certainly when the forecast report comes out, I find that to be, incredibly rich with information. And I also know, Anthony, that you run is it a weekly or a semi-weekly call with kind of a webinar type call too, right? Yeah.
Yes, we do have a weekly call where we look at what's happened last week, okay, in terms of high-level number, but also we try to still support the industry. That's something we started during COVID times, where the world was in disarray. What's happening with the world? We don't know. So we try to have this weekly conversation with our distributor, with our partner, or whoever who wants to join on Wednesday at 11 UK time, where we look at what happened last week, but also we always have a country manager to give a country flavor or what's happening in Spain last week, for example. Analyst would look at a specific category, PC, server, etc. So to try to bring some more nuggets of information to help support the distribution channel.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I think that you guys do a definite service to the industry by being able to provide that level of information on a consistent basis with consistent data and a consistent methodology, which I think is really important for all of us. So I thank you for what you and Context does. I also know your job is very challenging, and so I won't take up any more of your time, because I know you got to start thinking about third quarter forecast.
Thank you, Frank. No, it was a pleasure talking with you, Frank, always.
Yeah.
And looking forward to see you next in wherever we're gonna meet.
You will
Thank
see
you,
me
Frank.
someplace in Europe soon. Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, I think that's good.
That was very good.
Yeah, that was good, Anthony. I mean, I didn't realize the process. I knew the process you went through was inclusive of a lot of things. I didn't realize it was, how many people you get engaged in that process. So you're coordinating a lot of activity to being able to boil it down into here's some data, here's some numbers.
Yes, exactly. We're just trying to, because for us it's important to listen what's on the ground. We could have an idea in our room and decide, okay, it's going to be 3%, but actually, especially every country is different, and to have the input of someone in Poland, someone in Nordics, someone in Spain, to try to refine the number is quite useful. So we try to do more. We try to engage a bit more of the community, and that's something I am tasked with as well, to try to drive a more bottom-up kind of forecast, leveraging more the community. So that's something we will see in the next few quarters for sure.
Yeah, it's a big ecosystem. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in the community, and you got some big resellers that you have to talk to. You've got obviously the distributors. You got vendor contacts that kind of give you an indication of what they're thinking about. So there's a lot to it. And then taking all of that and saying, okay, that means X%. Hard.
Yeah, that's why I'm grateful to have a great team behind me to do a lot of work on this. It's not it's a big team, so that's good.
Well, this was great, Anthony. Thank you very much for your time.